My name is Daniel Hayes, and I've been a police officer for over 20 years. I've worked my way up through the ranks, seen just about every kind of chaos a person can imagine, and learned the value of staying calm under pressure. But nothing prepared me for the kind of pressure I would feel when planning my own wedding. It was supposed to be simple. My fiancée, Emily, and I had decided we didn't want a huge, expensive ceremony in some cold banquet hall. We wanted warmth, intimacy, the comfort of home. My home, to be specific, a modest but beautiful house in a quiet, gated community. I'd bought it 2 years before, thinking it would be the perfect place to eventually start a family. Right? Streets, kids riding bikes, neighbors waving when you passed by. It had that picture-perfect suburban charm, at least. That's what I thought. The first few months living there were peaceful. But then I started noticing her, the woman who seemed to always be outside, watching, inspecting, measuring things that didn't seem like they needed measuring. Her name was Linda, but the neighborhood just called her Karen. She wasn't actually an elected member of the HOA board, but you wouldn't know it from the way she acted. She walked around with a clipboard, sometimes even wearing a reflective vest as if she were conducting some kind of official inspection. She had a habit of stopping anyone in their tracks if she thought they were violating community rules, whether those rules existed or not. The first time she approached me, I was out front trimming my hedges. She walked up, clipboard in hand, and without even saying hello, told me that the shade of green on my mailbox was not regulation. I remember looking at her, then at my perfectly normal mailbox, and thinking she had to be joking. She wasn't. I smiled politely, told her I'd look into it, and went about my day. From then on, she made herself a regular part of my life. If I left my trash cans out 5 minutes past pickup time, she would be there to point it out. If I parked slightly too far from the curb, she'd document it with a photo. She even once left a note about the color of my Christmas lights, claiming they didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. I thought she was annoying, but harmless. That was before she found out about the wedding. Emily had been dreaming of our big day since the moment we got engaged. She wanted string lights hanging in the backyard, a wooden arch wrapped in flowers, a little live acoustic music, and tables set out for our friends and family. We weren't inviting hundreds of people, maybe 30 at most. We planned it carefully, even checking the HOA bylaws to make sure we weren't breaking any rules. There was nothing in there about small, private gatherings. One Saturday afternoon, about 2 weeks before the wedding, Emily and I were in the backyard testing where we might set up the arch. That's when I saw her nesting on the other side of the fence, peering over like a hawk. "What's all this?" she asked, her tone sharp, as if we were building an illegal structure. "Just getting ready for our wedding," I said, keeping my voice friendly. Her eyebrows shot up. "Here, in the backyard." "Yes," Emily chimed in, smiling. "It's going to be beautiful." Linda didn't return the smile. Backyard events like that can be disruptive to the community. Noise, parking, strangers walking around. We have rules about gatherings. I knew for a fact there were no such rules, but I didn't want to start an argument. "We've looked into it," I told her calmly. "We'll keep things quiet and respectful. It's just a small group of friends and family." She pursed her lips and nodded slowly. But the way she stared at us told me this wasn't over. Over the next week, her behavior escalated. I caught her taking photos of delivery vans, dropping off decorations. She sent me an email signed as community compliance, warning that unapproved events could result in fines. Emily found a letter in our mailbox claiming that our proposed gathering violated neighborhood harmony. The letter wasn't even on HOA letterhead. "Daniel, this is getting creepy," Emily said one night as we sat on the couch. "She's acting like she runs the whole neighborhood." "She doesn't," I replied, "and we're not doing anything wrong." I figured she might send more fake warnings or gossip to the other neighbors. What I didn't expect was how far she was willing to go. The day of the wedding finally came. The sun was shining, the yard looked perfect, and Emily was glowing in her dress. I stood at the front, my heart pounding not because I was nervous, but because I was happy. This was it, our moment, and then I saw her, Linda, standing at the corner of my yard, phone in hand, glaring like she had just caught a criminal. She lifted the phone to her ear, and I could see her lips moving. I couldn't hear her exact words over the music. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was calling 911. At first, I thought maybe she was bluffing. Maybe she was just holding her phone to her ear to make a point. But then I caught enough of her words to know she wasn't pretending. Yes, 911. I need to report an illegal event happening at my neighbor's property, she said in a loud, dramatic voice. There are too many people gathered here. It's a hazard. 30 people in formal clothes, drinking lemonade and listening to soft guitar music. I almost laughed. I looked over at Emily, who was trying to keep her composure. Her father, standing beside her, clenched his jaw but said nothing. The music kept playing, the guests kept chatting. But I could feel the tension starting to rise. Linda paced near the fence, gesturing wildly as if she was describing a dangerous crime scene. Yes, there's loud music. There's parking congestion. I believe they might be serving alcohol without a license. I need you to send officers immediately. The way she was speaking, you'd think we had set up an underground nightclub in the suburbs. Now, I had two choices. I could stop the ceremony to deal with her, or I could let her dig her own hole. I chose the latter. We continued with the vows. My best man, who had served with me on the force for years, caught my eye and smirked. He knew exactly what was about to happen. 10 minutes later, just as Emily and I were exchanging rings, I heard the distant but unmistakable sound of police. Sirens. The guests turned their heads. Emily's mother looked concerned. My aunt whispered to her husband, "Are we in trouble?" I took a deep breath. No one was in trouble, at least. No one on my side of the fence. 2 police cruisers pulled up just outside the house. Linda practically sprinted toward them, arms waving like she was directing traffic at an accident scene. "Officers, over here," she called out, her voice carrying across the yard. "This is the place. This is the illegal wedding I told you about." The officers stepped out, to younger guys from my department. They were dressed in standard uniforms, sunglasses on, and completely unaware of the situation they were walking into. They followed Linda toward the backyard, listening to her rant about unsanctioned events and noise violations. When they stepped through the open gate, I turned toward them with a calm smile. "Afternoon, gentlemen," I said, my voice carrying just enough authority to catch them off guard. They froze for a split second, recognizing me. One of them, actually, stammered, "Chief Hayes." Linda stopped in her tracks, glancing between us. "Chief? Who? What are you talking about?" The younger officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, this is our boss, Chief Daniel Hayes." The look on her face was priceless, like she'd just realized she'd tried to give a parking ticket to the mayor. "IOL, she stammered. "That doesn't change the fact that this gathering is out of control." The second officer glanced around at the neatly dressed guests, the carefully set tables, the quiet music, and raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this looks like a perfectly peaceful private event." Linda crossed her arms. "It's against HOA policy." I stepped forward. "Linda, I've read the HOA rules front to back. There's nothing in there about a small private wedding. You're trespassing on my property right now. I suggest you leave." Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The officers looked at me, waiting for my signal. "Please escort her back to her own yard," I said evenly. and make a note of the trespass. They nodded, politely, but firmly guiding her out through the gate. She muttered something about calling the HOA president as she disappeared down the driveway. I turned back to my guests, smiled, and said, "Now, where were we?" The crowd laughed, the tension melted away, and Emily squeezed my hand. We finished the ceremony without another interruption, but that wasn't the end of it, not by a long shot. After the ceremony, everyone was buzzing not just about the vows or the cake, but about the scene they'd just witnessed. Guests kept coming up to me, shaking their heads, saying things like, "I've heard of wedding crashers, but this is ridiculous. And she really thought she could call the cops on you?" Emily tried to focus on enjoying the moment, but I could see it in her eyes. She was worried this wasn't over. And honestly, so was I. People like Linda don't just back down after being embarrassed. If anything, they double down. Sure enough, the very next morning, I found an envelope taped to my front door. No postage, no return address, just my name, written in all capital letters. Inside was a typed letter, complete with fake HOA letterhead, accusing me of conduct unbecoming of a community member and demanding a formal apology for causing distress to the neighborhood. I read it twice, then laughed. Emily didn't think it was as funny. "She's trying to make it official," she said, pacing in the kitchen. "If she keeps doing this, what's next? Fines, harassment. She doesn't have the authority." I reminded her, "This isn't coming from the HOA, it's coming from her." But I knew I couldn't just ignore it. The wedding was one thing. It was over and done with. But now she was making it a campaign. That afternoon, I called the actual HOA president, a guy named Tom who'd lived in the neighborhood for over a decade. I explained everything: Linda's obsession with policing the block, the fake compliance letters, the 911 stunt at the wedding. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Tom sighed. "Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't the first time we've gotten complaints about her. She's been warned before, but she always skirts around the rules, claiming she's just being a concerned neighbor. She's harassing people," I said flatly. "I agree," Tom replied. "And now that you've got her trespassing documented, we have something to act on." Apparently, the HOA board had the power to remove residents from volunteer committees if they were causing trouble, and while Linda wasn't officially on the board, she'd somehow gotten herself on a so-called community compliance committee, which gave her just enough credibility to push people around. Tom promised to bring it up at the next HOA meeting, which happened to be in just a few days. I told him I'd be there when the day of the meeting came. I walked into the community center wearing a plain polo and jeans, just another resident, at least on the surface. Linda was already there, sitting near the front, clutching her clipboard like it was a weapon. She gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. As soon as the meeting started, she raised her hand and launched into a speech about maintaining community standards and ensuring all residents follow the rules. Then, without naming me directly, she started describing an incident involving a large, unauthorized event that caused disturbance and traffic congestion. When she finally paused to take a breath, Tom cleared his throat. "Linda, are you referring to the Hayes wedding?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Well, yes, that's the one." Tom leaned forward. "We've reviewed the bylaws. There were no violations. Furthermore, we've received credible reports of harassment and trespassing related to that event, harassment initiated by you." A murmur went through the room. Linda's face flushed. "I was only doing my duty to protect the neighborhood." "That is not your duty," Tom said firmly. "And as of this moment, you are removed from the Community Compliance Committee." Her jaw dropped. "You can't do that. It's in the bylaws," Tom replied, "and this decision is final." The room went silent for a moment. Then, someone in the back, maybe one of my neighbors, quietly clapped. A few others joined in. Linda's eyes darted around the room, her face a mix of rage and humiliation. Without another word, she grabbed her clipboard, stuffed it into her bag, and stormed out. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong, because Linda wasn't the type to go quietly, and she still had one more move to play. For a few days after the HOA meeting, the neighborhood felt lighter. People waved more, smiled more, and even stopped by to congratulate Emily and me on the wedding. Without Linda patrolling the streets like a self-appointed sheriff, the place seemed calmer, but deep down, I knew it was too quiet. Sure enough, 1 week later, it started again. It was a Thursday evening. Emily and I were having dinner when I heard a loud thunk outside. I went to the front door and found an unmarked manila envelope sitting on the porch. Inside were printed photographs, grainy shots of my driveway, my backyard, even through our living room window. On the back of one photo was a single word written in all caps. Watching, Emily's face went pale when she saw them. Daniel. This is crossing a line. She was right. Annoying notes and fake letters were one thing. This was harassment, and it had turned into something more personal. I checked my security cameras. Sure enough, there she was. Linda, creeping around the edge of our property after dark, taking photos with her phone. I felt my blood pressure rise, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing my temper would only make things worse. The next morning, I decided to pay her a visit. When she opened her door, she didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, she seemed almost smug. "Oh, Chief Hayes," she said, dragging out the title. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I held up one of the photos. "Care to explain why you're taking pictures through my windows?" Her expression didn't change. "I'm documenting potential violations." "There are no violations," I said flatly. "And you're trespassing again." "This is harassment, Linda. It stops now." Ah. She tilted her head as if she were amused. "Or what? You'll arrest me for caring about my neighborhood. I'll arrest you for stalking," I said. "And I have the video to back it up." 4. The first time I saw her confidence waver. She didn't answer, just shut the door in my face. I thought that might scare her off, but Linda wasn't done. 2 days later, I was on duty at the station when a patrol officer came in, looking uncomfortable. "Chief, there's something you should see." He handed me a complaint form. It was from Linda, accusing me of abusing my position and intimidating a private citizen. She claimed I'd threatened her safety, that I was using my badge to silence her. It was a bold move and a stupid one. I immediately recused myself from the complaint and handed it to Internal Affairs. I knew my department would investigate thoroughly. It didn't take long before the truth came out. Between the video evidence from my security cameras, the witness statements from neighbors, and her own 911 call recording the case against her, was rock-solid. Internal Affairs cleared me completely and forwarded her case to the city attorney. She was charged with misdemeanor trespassing and harassment. But even that wasn't the final blow. That came from the HOA itself. At the next board meeting, they announced a new rule informally dubbed the Linda Clause, stating that no resident could claim enforcement authority without official HOA appointment and written approval. Any false claim would result in fines and potential legal action. Linda wasn't there to hear it. She'd already put her house up for sale. The neighborhood watched in near silence as she packed up her things, loaded them into a moving truck, and drove away. No one waved goodbye. Emily and I stood on our porch, holding hands. For the first time since we'd moved in, the street felt truly peaceful, or so we thought. Because just when we believed Linda was out of our lives for good, she left behind one last surprise. It was about 2 weeks after Linda's moving truck rolled out of the neighborhood when the last piece of her drama surfaced. Emily and I were in the middle of a lazy Sunday morning coffee, pancakes, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, when I heard the doorbell ring. Standing on the porch was our mail carrier, holding a small cardboard box. It had no return address, just our names typed neatly on the label. I took it inside, set it on the table, and cut the tape. Inside was a single item, a bright orange traffic cone with black lettering across the side that read, "Property of the Community Compliance Committee." Emily laughed, but there was something else in the box. A folded piece of paper. I opened it and read, "Enjoy the peace while it lasts." No signature, but I didn't need one. Emily frowned. She really couldn't let it go, could she? I shook my head, a slow smile forming. No, but that's the last gasp of someone who's lost the fight. I handed the note to the HOA president later that day, just to keep it on record. He chuckled and said, "Guess she wanted to leave her mark one more time." And that was the end of it. From then on, life in the neighborhood was normal. No fake letters, no sneaky photos, no one timing how long my trash bins stayed on the curb. Just quiet evenings, friendly waves, and the occasional barbecue with neighbors who had become friends. Sometimes, Emily and I would sit on the back deck at night, like the string lights from our wedding still hanging over the yard, and think about how close we came to having our perfect day ruined. But here's the thing. Linda calling 911 didn't ruin our wedding. If anything, it made the day more memorable. We had a story that every single guest still talks about, and a moment that reminded me why staying calm under pressure is always worth it. People like Linda think control equals power, but power without respect, it's nothing. And when you spend your life trying to control others, you eventually find out, sometimes in front of the whole neighborhood, that you never really had any power at all. As for me, I still wear the badge, still serve the community, and still live in the same house where I said I do to the love of my life. The only difference is, we've got a lot more peace now, and the next time someone thinks about Karening me in my own neighborhood, well, let's just say they'll think twice. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Till to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye.